Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I had a very exciting and very good reading month in the month of December. Plus, I am filming this video on my birthday, so I'm a birthday girl today. Let's discuss all the books I've read in the month of December. Hello, you're watching Dreaming Stories and I'm Anna. So today we are talking about all of the books that I read in the month of December. As already said, I had an amazing reading month, plus I had actually a very interesting holiday adventure with my partner. I'm still planning to post some of the videos from my travels because I had some reading vlogs during my traveling time, and hopefully you will like it. One of the videos is actually already out. I posted that one up last week. So if you're curious, please have a look. I actually really like that video. I put so much effort and I hope you will enjoy it. But let's go back to books and let's discuss what I was actually reading in the month of December. I think this time I will try to change the way I'm presenting these videos, because in the past I was starting with the least favorite book of the month. I think this month I would like to flip and see how it will go, if it will be more interesting for you, because I noticed that maybe not really many people like that format. So this month we will start with the books that I liked the most. So in the first category, I actually put 3 books at the same time because I couldn't really choose which one of these I prefer. So all of them are quite short. They were very short and sweet reads, and I absolutely loved all of them. So the first one is If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. The second one is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. And the last one in this batch is Kim Jiyoung, Born 1982 by Cho Nam-jo. I'm really sorry because I tend to butcher the names. I really apologize, but sometimes some names are very complicated for me to pronounce. Okay, let's discuss these books. Let's discuss actually first I Who Have Never Known Men. This book was actually published some time ago, quite a few years back, but it has a current resurgence, I think, just because lots of people on YouTube finally found it out and read it, and they absolutely love it. And I'm one of them. I actually just probably followed the lead of other booktubers, and that's how I found out about this book, and I just decided to give it a try. So in this book, we're following our young protagonist, and she finds herself in a cage with other 39 women. She's the youngest in the cage. None of these women in the cage, 40 of them in total, know why they're there, what happened, what's the reason for them being there. There is seemingly no purpose for them being there because nothing is actually required of them. They're being guarded day and night by a number of male jailers, but nothing is actually asked of them. They're just sitting in a cell, doing nothing, and trying to create some sort of sense of normality in this abnormal situation. They don't have windows, they don't know what's happening outside of the building, outside of the cell. They don't have any news. They don't even know if it's a night or the day, and they're trying to understand what's actually happening. As we follow our young protagonist, we're trying to make sense of the situation, because she's trying to understand what's happening. She's trying to understand the dynamic of the group of these women. She's trying to find her space in it and trying to understand if she can actually fit in the situation, because she's the youngest one and she doesn't have any memories of the previous life, because all of the women in the cell are coming with some baggage, with some history, because they still remember their previous lives. But just because she arrived at the cell so young, she doesn't have any memories of the past. She is just a clean slate. And she feels that she can't really fit in with the group just because she's so different. She doesn't have any social cues from the past. She doesn't know how the society worked and how she should interact with people around her. And through this protagonist, through her eyes, we try to make sense of the situation I feel that this book is a meditation on isolation because our protagonist feels isolated. She doesn't have any information about the world around her. She doesn't have any history, any roots in society. She doesn't know if it's a day or night. She doesn't know anything about the world around her. And she feels isolated inside the group because she doesn't have any connection to the women around her because she doesn't have any common points to discuss with them. And I feel there are several themes that are absolutely brilliantly discussed in this book. First of all, there is a theme of a generational gap. Since our protagonist is the youngest one of the group, she feels different from the group and somehow rebellious because this generational gap is exasperated not just based on the difference in age of the characters in this book, but actually by the notion that all her experiences are so much different from other women in the group. She can't relate to them. She thinks and feels in a very different terms from them. She can't relate to the group at all. And another theme I absolutely loved that was discussed in the book is actually, is there meaning in life if there is no purpose in it? If you don't have a goal? How would you feel if you are mentally and physically isolated and you can't relate to anything and you don't know why you live and there is nothing to strive for? I think these things are explored absolutely brilliantly in this book. If you want to meditate on this sort of topics just as a mental exercise, I think it's an amazing, amazing book. It is very short, so it will not take too much of your time, but it's so unusual and so brilliantly written. I would highly recommend it to everyone. So the next book in this group is If Beale Street Could Talk. This is another book where we follow a very young protagonist. She got pregnant by her boyfriend, but at the same time, her boyfriend is being wrongfully accused of rape. And at the time of the book, he's being detained in the prison and waiting for his sentence. So we follow their relationship because we get throwbacks in time towards the time when the relationship started developing. We learn a lot about family dynamic for our young protagonist and as well for her boyfriend, how families work. We learn a lot about family members, and it's absolutely brilliant because I think it talks about two types of love. It's a lover's love between our young characters waiting for the sentence, and it's a family love. It discusses a lot the support and love the family can provide you in this sort of difficult situations. And what I found absolutely amazing, it is the way that James Baldwin writes. I think he is one of these amazing examples of showing and not telling, because the way he writes about certain things, he doesn't write exactly, he doesn't try to explain you in detail certain concepts, but he's just writing around it, but in such a beautiful way that you instantly understand what he means. Like for instance, in one of the paragraphs I'll try to read you now, when our character is trying to tell you how beautiful her mother is. I think she's a beautiful woman. She may not be beautiful to look at, whatever that means in this kingdom of the blind. You understand exactly what she means by reading these sentences. I don't know, I find it so profoundly beautiful. And if you're in the mood for some short books with lots of emotional charge and sharp social commentary, I would really highly recommend this one. Another book in this batch is Kim Jiyoung, born 1982. I think I was one of the last people on the planet that actually read it. And look at them. How many comments I actually put in here. It is amazing. I don't know. I feel I still need to try to wrap my brain around it because it was such a brilliant experience, to be honest. But yes, it was amazing. I would highly recommend it. I think women will find it very, very relatable. For me, for instance, in many of the moments during this book, I just felt that I had these experiences. It was absolutely relatable. And I'd recommend to read it for men as well so they can understand better their partners, what sometimes they have to go through and what they have to face. But anyway, in this book, we are following Kim Jiyoung. She's in her early 30s. She is married, she has a child, and she started experiencing these mental issues. It looks like almost split personality disorder. When she started speaking from a perspective of other people, of other women she knows or knew in her life, some of the women she speaks from are already dead. And her family is perplexed. Her husband doesn't understand what's happening, and she's being sent to a male psychiatrist, and they're trying to figure out what's happening. And throughout this book, it's a very dry account of her life and these experiences that led to the point in the life of Kim Ji-yoon when she started experiencing that mental disorder. And we start slowly understanding what actually led to that point. Because this is pretty much an account of these traumatic experiences, all these sexist encounters that she had to go through all her life. And you will understand in the end of the book why it is structured in this way. It will be clear. And I found it absolutely brilliant. And the very end of it made me, in the beginning, quite hopeful. And at the very, very end of it, it was just a total despair because you understand that it's all hopeless. That's why I feel that sometimes it will be very eye-opening read for men as well. And the next batch of books I would like to discuss with you is virtually 4.5 stars. I know I mentioned in my previous videos that I don't really I know that I mentioned in my previous videos that I usually try not to give star ratings, but I think it's just for ease of comprehension what I'm talking to and just to better explain my level of enjoyment reading certain books. Okay, let's go ahead. The next one is Man Called Ove. I think probably I'm one of the last people on this planet again that read this book. It's very popular. There is a movie based on this book, Man Called Ove, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a very, very heartwarming book. It was part of my reading vlog during my travel. I'll try to link this video somewhere on the screen, and please have a look if you are interested where we went. You will be able to see more in-depth thoughts on these books. So, in Man Called Ove, we are following our 59 years old protagonist. He's very grouchy. He recently lost his wife and he's not really dealing with the grief well. The book is split into two different timelines. There is a present timeline where we follow Ove through this process of healing. We see how these events are affecting him and his relationship with people around him. And there is a past timeline where we can learn more about him, where we can build more empathy towards this very complicated and sometimes very unlikable character. So we learn more about his relationship with his wife, with his friends, with his dead father, and we can see what made him the man he is at present. He's a very opinionated man of right angles. He loves math. He likes buildings because they're easy to understand. Probably all of us know this sort of people that sometimes we find unlikable because they're just very non-agreeable and they're very strong on their principles and very inflexible. So I think with this book, you will find a new empathy towards this sometimes unlikable people. The next book in this batch is The Land of Lost Things by John Connolly. John Connolly is one of my favorite authors. I think it's my personal goal to promote him as much as possible. I'm always very excited about his books. It's a sequel to the first book, The Book of Lost Things, and I think it continues the story and continues the feel of the book, the atmosphere of the book, but it improved on it on so many very subtle ways. I started appreciating the story even more after reading this book. So in this book, in this duology, because we have two books, they can be read separately. It's not really a continuous story where you have to read the first book in order to understand what's happening in the second one. It's not the case. So if, for instance, you're not in the mood to go through two books, you can pick up any one of them and you'll be absolutely fine. Obviously, you will have references in the second book to the first one, and you will see some characters that you will have met, let's say, in the first one. But it's not necessary to read the first book in order to understand this one. So in this book, we are following our female protagonist. Her daughter is in coma. She had an accident, and at the moment she's in coma, and our protagonist is despairing because she's trying to reach out to her and wants her to come back to her to have a normal life again. And she starts despairing and sometimes having this absolutely terrible thoughts that maybe it's just easier to let it go. If she just dies and all of them can go back to normal life. And some forces start listening to her. This is a portal fantasy. So at some point, our protagonist goes through a crack in the world to this magical fairy tale realm. But she finds out that it's not a really fairy tale place. It's a twisted and dark fantasy world. It is an amalgamation of all your scary, twisted fairy tales. And she has to find her way out of it back to her daughter. So this book heavily leans on grief. So if you're going through grief, I'm not sure how you'll feel about it because maybe it will feel a little bit too close to her. But at the same time, I feel that it can be a very healing experience. So I'm not really sure if I can recommend it to you. But I really enjoyed it. I absolutely love writing of John Connolly. And if you're really in the mood for dark, twisted fairy tales, I would really highly recommend it. Next one on my list is Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix is another author that I absolutely love. I already read two books by him and I absolutely love them. So I think it will be my reading goal for this year, for 2025, that I read all of his books. Okay, who knew that we needed a horror story staged in IKEA? I found the premise of it absolutely bonkers. It's so exciting. It's such a wild ride. It's not a perfect book. If you check Goodreads, I don't think this book has the best of an average rating, but I loved it. It's still not a 5 stars book, but quite close to it. I just closed my eyes to a few things that maybe weren't really executed that well, just based on the excitement of it. In this book, we are following our protagonist, Emmy. She works in Orsk. It's so difficult to pronounce, to be honest. So this is a copy of IKEA. It's an American furniture chain, and it's literally like IKEA. You get absolutely the same feel. And if you have a look at this book itself, it's actually designed as an IKEA catalog. So Emmy works in the shop as a shop assistant in the showroom, and one of the nights she has to stay for a night shift, and absolutely terrifying things start happening during the night in the shop. So if you're in the mood for a horror, wild ride horror book set in IKEA, because, well, IKEA probably can be terrifying when you're there at night, I would highly recommend this one. It's very short, it's a very easy read. It will not really take you much time, but I think it's a very, very exciting read. There are a few things that I found a little bit rough. Let's say some of the things were wrapped up, or transitions between them were quite, let's say, rough. But otherwise, I think it was very exciting read, and I can just forgive for this sort of small things. I really enjoyed this one. So next batch of books. These books I bought 4 stars. I have 3 books in this set. So the first one is the Book of Lost Things. I read it on Kindle. It was a read for me. I don't really have a physical copy with me at the moment. I'll pop it on the screen. But this is the first book in duology that I was just discussing previously. And in this book, we are following our young protagonist, David. His mom died in the beginning of the book. He is dealing with the grief. And quite soon after his mother's death, his father finds a new partner. She gets pregnant and they have a baby. And David, understandably, is very frustrated. He can't accept his mother's death. And he finds it very difficult to come with the notion of this potentially new family, new mother, and a new brother. So he's full of rage, regret, jealousy, and grief. And he's trying to deal with it, but not a very good way, because he's just a child and he has a lot to learn. But, as I said, it's a portal fantasy. At some point, David goes through a crack into this dark, twisted fairy tale world because he's summoned by the voice of his dead mother, and he's trying to save her and bring her back. And during this journey, you will encounter lots of references to very known fairy tales, but they will be very, very dark and twisted. And David will have to go through some self-transformation and self-growth journey. Again, this book is heavily leaning on grief, and if you're not very comfortable with this topic, maybe you shouldn't really read it, but otherwise I would highly recommend it. Okay, next book on my list, The Woman in Black. It is a very well-known a classic haunted house story. In this book, we're following our protagonist, who is being sent to a funeral of a client of the firm he's working for. He's a legal professional, and the owner of the firm where he works sends him to this house and to the funeral of the lady that used to live there. And as already said, it's a very well-known classic haunted house story. It's heavily leaning on atmosphere of isolation and dread. If you like this sort of suffocating books where you're isolated and there is the sense of dread and you don't know what's happening and there is a mystery of it, I would really recommend this one. Again, it's a very short one. Please bear in mind that there will not be let's say very twisted and surprising reveals in the end of the book. It is a classic book, so it is a little bit dated. I found the reveal of the book very predictable, but at the same time, I absolutely love the atmosphere of it. And if you're in the mood for some classic haunted house story, it's a good pick. Next one on the list. It was part of my reading log again, and it was The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Yes, I'm one of these people who've never read this book, but I fixed it. In this book, we are following our aging protagonist. He's a fisherman and he's very low on his luck. He had 84 consecutive days without any fish in his nets. And he's desperately trying to find his luck again. And he decided to go to a deeper sea to catch this big fish. So this book is a meditation on resilience, on human resilience. Nothing much happens during this book. So if you're in the mood for short, full of action books, this is not your pick. But if you just want to see and think for a while on a topic. In this case, it's about human resilience. I think it's a very good and relaxing pick because we follow all the actions, all the thoughts of our protagonist, and we start intimately understanding all the emotions he's going through, all the despair, all the hope, and all strength of will that is required to achieve your goals. Okay, next batch of my books. Two books in this set, and these books are about 3.5 stars. The first book on the list is Dreaming in Cuban by Cristina Garcia. This is a family story with the rift caused by a Cuban revolution. This family is split in the middle by political and ideological differences. The matriarch of the family has 3 children that live in different parts of the world, and they hold different political views. And we follow different members of the family and trying to understand their views, why they hold these views, because this book examines the reasoning behind of it as well. At the same time, this book is very female centric because majority of the people that we follow in this book are women. Their experiences are the central part of the story, with men are just following their lead. In this book, you will be able to see how people are trying to reconcile their differences, how difficult it can be, and can it be achieved at all? Because for some of the people, you feel that the rift is too big and differences are just too strong for them to find a way back to each other. I really like the idea of this book, but I felt that some of the things weren't really executed to my liking, and in general, I felt it was a little bit too short for such an idea. I really hoped for it to be a little bit deeper so I can understand these people even better. Another book in the set is The Dreaming Jewels by Theodore Sturgeon. Again, it will be part of my reading vlog, so stay tuned, you will see it. It's a very short book. I've read already another book by this author and I enjoyed it and I decided to give it a go. So in this book, we are following our young protagonist, Horty. He's very young. He doesn't have the greatest time. He's an orphan. He's being adopted in the family that doesn't really treat him well. His adoptive parents are abusive towards him. Children around him are making fun of him. Doesn't really exactly fit in the society. So one of the days, his adoptive father is being abusive again. He breaks 3 of Horty's fingers, and the boy decides to run away, and he joins a carnival bringing just a doll with him. And this doll has very special eyes, like jewels. And we follow adventures of this boy, how he finds a new family, and how he has to confront evils from the past and from the future. I really enjoyed the story, but unfortunately some of the things mentioned in the book I found a little bit outdated. And in general, I feel execution and some of the transitions in the story were a little bit rough. And the last book of this video is Before Night Falls by Reinaldo Arenas. I'm really sorry to tell you that this book was the one that I liked the least. I was really excited to read this book because it's an autobiography by Reinaldo Arenas. He's a very famous Cuban writer and a poet. And he was openly homosexual at the time when it wasn't really accepted and it was very dangerous. I was really excited to read his story and understand more about his past and about Cuba at the time. Unfortunately, some of the aspects of the book didn't really work well for me. I will post a dedicated reading log for this book and it will be set in Cuba. So you'll be able to see some of the sceneries from my holiday as well. But yes, unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy it that much, but I know that this book is very well loved and it has very high ratings. So please don't listen to me. Please still give it a go, or maybe just wait for my reading log and my more detailed opinion about it. And maybe you can have a better understanding if it will work for you or not. But thank you everyone. Thank you friends for watching this video. I had a very exciting reading month, and hopefully February will be even better, and we will discuss it again soon. See you. Bye.